A lovely good morning to you, our viewers. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. We sincerely apologize for starting the show a little bit late, but anyway, we are here to bring you nothing but the best in terms of what is happening in the political sector. I'm your host, Miriam Kaimba, and of course, in studio, I'm not alone. I'm joined by my colleague, Patrick Soko, where we're going to be taking you for an hour or so and where we're going to be just looking at various issues. Among them, the issue regarding the Konkola copper mine, KCM. You know, I was being hesitant to say the big elephant in the issue, but finally we have come to a conclusion of negotiation, and we saw yesterday government announcing that they have indeed, you know, given back KCM to VEDANTA Resources Limited.
Well, quite interesting developments there, where we saw that the government did hand over KCM to VEDANTA. This has been a song for some non-state actors who were pro-VEDANTA, calling for that government should give VEDANTA the mine. And this morning on the Camnet Breakfast Show, what we are doing is that we are asking the question: what is your take on government's decision to hand over KCM to VEDANTA? We want to get your perspective. This is a journey that we have been through for 2 years now, because we were expecting that KCM should be able to start operating instantly when the UPND took over office. But it has to take this long so that the mine can start working. However, there's been a lot of consequences as a result of delayed opening of the mine or full operational of the mine, and resolving issues bordering on VEDANTA as well as ZCCMIH. So now, to just get started on the breakfast show this morning, let's have a look at the health corner with the doctors.
Good morning, viewers. My name is Dr. Musole Chipoya, an epidemiologist at the Zambia National Public Health Institute, focusing on vaccine-preventable diseases. And I'm also a member of the Medical Women's Association of Zambia. Today, we'll continue our discussion on poliomyelitis. We'll have a short recap on our previous two discussions, which has been what is poliomyelitis, as well as how can we prevent polio. We'll also get into details of the pathophysiology as well as the clinical presentation before getting into today's discussion on the diagnosis of polio. So polio is a highly infectious disease. It is transmitted through the fecal-oral route, so through ingestion of food or substances that are actually contaminated with the polio virus. It can be prevented, and prevention is through taking the vaccine, the polio vaccine, which is usually given to our under 5 children at different times. Then in addition to that, we will also recap on the clinical presentation. We talked about how patients with poliomyelitis present, that we have 70% of people who are actually asymptomatic but are infected. Then we have the 30% who have mild symptoms. They'll have symptoms which are flu-like symptoms, and we have the 1% with paralytic symptoms. How it affects the body, we talked about it affecting different parts of the body. It can either give us nausea, vomiting, fever, and headache, or we can have the severe symptom, which is actually paralysis, which is a lifelong disability. In addition to that, we also want to note that there is no cure for polio, and prevention is the only way that we can protect ourselves and our children from this virus. We get back into our discussion today. For this session, we'll be looking at how exactly is a diagnosis of polio made. So when we have a case with presenting with sudden weakness of any limb, sudden weakness, which is a floppy type of weakness in any limb, it can be the legs or the arms. These children have to be investigated for poliomyelitis. So how do we investigate? We cannot make a clinical diagnosis, meaning when you walk into the hospital, the doctor cannot say for a fact without doing any test to rule out other causes or to actually put a finger on it to say this is polio. And the only way that we'll actually know this is doing investigations on the stool sample. Like we said, this virus is ingested through the mouth, or we take it in through the mouth, and it comes out through the fecal matter. So we test the fecal matter. We test stool samples, and those are the ones that will actually tell us whether or not this is a there is a poliovirus in the stool or not. And when this diagnosis is made is when we can actually go for palliative care. As we said earlier, there is no treatment for this virus. So how are the samples collected? We're collecting 2 stool specimens, and these specimens are collected 24 hours apart. So when we collect 1 stool specimen today, the next stool specimen will be collected 24 hours later. We will not collect both specimens on the first or rather on the same day. And when these samples are collected, we are supposed to store them at a certain temperature. So it is important that before you actually start the process of sample collection, that you are advised by the doctors or the laboratory technologists how exactly this sample collection is supposed to be done and how the samples are supposed to be stored, so that we do not destroy the virus if it is actually there in the sample, and we actually have an accurate diagnosis at the end of the day. So when we collect these 2 specimens, they are then supposed to be transported to a virology lab at the University Teaching Hospital. This should not be at the cost of the patient, but totally at the cost of the Ministry of Health, who is supported by various partners for these samples to actually be collected as well as to be investigated. So that is all we have for you for today. We have discussed how exactly a diagnosis of poliovirus is supposed to be done. Thank you for joining us in this session of discussing poliovirus. Keep watching Camnet TV. My name is Dr. Musolech Poya from the Zambia National Public Health Institute and a member of the Medical Women's Association of Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you for staying with us on the Camnet Breakfast Show. I'm Patrick Soko and Miriam Kayamba, your usual host for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday editions of the Camnet Breakfast Show. And interesting enough, we have a wonderful conversation and want to be getting your views on the program, our dear viewers, especially those of you on the Copper Belt who want to hear from you regarding Vedanta. And we just started off with our first segment, which is the Health Corner. Now, moving forward, we have to look at how the kwacha is performing against other major convertibles. Stay tuned. Let's have a look. Now, the $1 is buying at 20 kwacha 31 ngwe and selling at 20 kwacha 71 ngwe. The Greater British Pound is buying at 25 kwacha 52 ngwe and selling at 26 kwacha 02 ngwe. The Euro is buying at 21 kwacha 80 ngwe and selling at 22 kwacha 23 ngwe. The South African Rand is buying at 1 kwacha 06 ngwe and selling at 1 kwacha 08 ngwe. So those are your updates when it comes to the money market as updated today being the 6th of September 2023 at 0718. Interesting enough, Miriam Kayamba, you can see for yourself there that the kwacha continues to be defeated by the dollar.
Yes, Patrick,
are you keeping it positive?
Are
you keeping it positive?
We'll jump that stage for now.
Are you keeping it positive?
No, the positivity is always there, but with how the current, I'm not saying that I'm changing my positivity verb. The positivity is still there, but I'm just disappointed at how things are moving. I would want to see certain changes to be made as quick as possible, because when you look at how the performance of our kwacha, trust me, you will agree with me that things are very bad, and coupled with the high cost of living, it's just a total mess. Yeah.
It's sad that I had to prompt her for the third time for her to give me that positive response. But however, our dear viewers, we want to hear from you pertaining to our government's decision to hand over Vedanta, KCM rather, to Vedanta Resources, and we have to get your views and comments. We are taking your comments on via text. You can send us those voice notes and videos, and we want to read them out. And also remember to call us live in studio, as well as leave us that text message on our Facebook page. What do you think of government's decision to hand over KCM to Vedanta Resources? Miriam Kaimba, let's have a look at some of the stories that we have.
And we're moving on to zooming in some of the stories that made headlines in our news yesterday. We saw opposition Patriotic Front presidential aspirant Dr. Chishimba Kambuli appearing before court yesterday, where in relation to his case where he's accused of unlawfully assembly. Apparently his case yesterday did not take off, because his co-accused was not available before court, hence the matter could not proceed. However, just shortly after appearing before court, he did make some statement where he charged that the task force constituted by the United Party for National Development Administration to address the mini-meal price is a mockery. And well, let's get to look at that story, and we'll continue with our conversation when we come back.
They say and our brothers must know that Zambia pakuina my elections kabaponya elwechibipile balechitave continue kubepo kwena mwena Zambia na mutamutontonkanya iluke umuntu afave mkumiyeba one day ukwebati mutengo wabunga ulino kuwela punch no mbalini Jack Mwimbwana mkwebati mumone fiala chitika next month na kuntanshi fintu fiala babwi afuma mkumbepo ufikwa mkalali yako mwali yako ama potato pa Monday, mwali yako ubunga pa Tuesday, wali pa Tuesday, mwali yako na rice pa Wednesday. When prices of commodities keep going up, it's unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. I have advised our colleagues several times, learn to tell the truth. Mwafuma mkwefia bantu one day, ya pitilepo fia, mwalunda
wamirisu ukankala bwino bantu bazamba kulima kuchoka mu soyabinzi kuyenda mu chimanga zisapaka chimanga chikapaka mutengo wabunga ubwera pansi bwino.
While the ruling United Party for National Development have assured the nation of putting in place interventions that will address the mini-meal price amidst the high cost of living, opposition political parties accuse them of having failed to govern the country. Opposition Patriotic Front presidential aspirant Dr. Chishimba Kambuli described as mockery a task force constituted to address the mini-meal price. He described the first 2 years of the UPND administration in office as failure. Addressing the media shortly after his court appearance at the Lusaka Magistrate, Dr. Kambuli challenged the ruling party to apologize to citizens and admit failing to govern the country.
We have set up a mini-meal task force to look at the prices of mini-meal. What an insult to the people of Zambia. What an insult, President Hakainde Hichilema. You know that umutengo wabunge chowaila pamulu, mwalininika umutengo wa mataba from 180 hapo ba PF ba ushile to 280 per 50 kg bag. Mwalininika amalight yewe figayo fibonfia ukupela obunga. Mwalininika diesel iyo imyotoke shitwalo obunga okufuma kuma milling companies shibonfia. Nanga kweno obunga mweba nensu mukabwesha shani mwe ba mapiete ba puti. Ala chile kali palekeni kubepa abantu ubufi. nganamufira okuteka ekyalo nangunamulunda efintu ezenisi abantu atafintu nafishupa banekiteni adjust.
He also accused the ruling party of failing to uphold the rule of law.
That does not mean that I support ukulachusha my opposition leaders like Efemulechita. Mwabulo mwa icheshon tembo, a bailable offense. Mwamubika mchifungo kufumapa Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and you say you follow the rule of law. Alaba echechi, insoni, wuntu muninane. That's why I ran away from you. Because narikubelengere namuno kutila, amano ya kuteke chalo. Munina nita ukwete na alimweno kutile cholefu afi ni revenge no kupangenda la mashobe ukubomfia abantu abena Zambia, which is very unfortunate. Task force muna tumfia abantu mwefiluanimu.
Earlier, Dr. Kabli had his case where he is accused of holding an unlawful assembly at his residence receive an early adjournment following the non-availability of his co-accused. In this case, Dr. Kamli is jointly charged with PF member Charles Kakula, who is facing a charge of expressing racial remarks against the Tonga, Lozi and Kaonde-speaking people. The matter has been adjourned to the 7th of September 2023 for trial. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
There you have it. The issue of Mirimo is a topical matter in this country, and we continue to ponder on it, bringing various angles to this story. This was a reaction towards President Hakainde Hichilema's statement purporting to his commitment to reduce the price of Mirimo by making sure that he increases production by motivating the farmers, as well as putting in place measures to curb smuggling and export of the commodity in the interim to ensure that the commodity is available in the local market. However, this has not been received well by the opposition, and they feel that the president is giving a lip service to that. However, talking about the issue of Mirimo, we are preview to some clips where we have seen that people are queuing up for the Mirimo at Silverest. That's for ZNS. That's the only Mirimo that is almost affordable. Miriam Kaimba. It is fetching between 150 and 130 should be for roller meal, but people are eager to get that Mirimo because it is indeed affordable, Miriam Kaimba, and it is obvious, and it tells you something that people, that's the range of the price they can afford. They can afford. So if we are pushing them beyond that, then you are choking them and you are compelling them into poverty. So that is not good, and we are saying that ZNS is being confronted by a lot of people because people want to buy cheaper Mirimo. But how can we replicate that whatever ZNS is doing to other milling companies, and how can we ensure that we increase the production on ZNS so that they can be able to meet at least even half of the market, of the local market? I think that would go a long way in cushioning our people. So I think probably they should be allocating enough resources to the Zambia National Service, especially probably in the 2024 national budget, so that probably they can also be buying more maize when it comes to when the maize marketing season is opened. ZNS can equally be purchasing more of its maize, more maize from the market, as well as be able to mill this mill. But that's probably some of the suggestions. But ZNS, we know that they are also farmers. Yeah. So we just hope that probably if they increase their production, they would be able to use their maize and mill it and be able to sell to Zambians cheaper Mirimo. That's something that we are hoping that can be done in the interim, because at the end of the day, we are seeing that people are becoming desperate to access Mirimo cheaply, and others we have also heard information.
The desperation is still there, and the fact that if people are going to continue, buying Mirimo at the current price, it's very shocking. We are going to see in a long way a lot of people, making such long queues if this issue is not adequately addressed as soon as possible. But we have heard that the current administration has been very vocal and saying that, they're doing everything possible to ensure that they address the high cost of mini meal that people are currently complaining about. One thing that we should not forget, Patrick, is that when we're talking about economic development, should be felt by everyone, even the ordinary citizens. We have heard various economists saying we have recorded a positive economic growth, but this has not translated to the ordinary people because they cannot feel the impact.
Yeah, so we are confronted by quite a number of challenges, and inflation shows how to the extent at which prices are increasing, because it is beyond 10%, and the target for the 2023 national budget was a single digit. I'm sure even when the Minister of Finance will be making announcement on the national budget, it will be projecting a single digit inflation for the year 2024, but it will be presenting the budget against the backdrop that the inflation rate is already at 2 digit and off the target. So it's something that we are hoping to see. What measures are they putting in place to make sure that inflation is arrested? And if we are going to continuously see the escalation of electricity prices, and also the electricity tariffs increasing, and also fuel continuing to increase, we are not going to see a reduction in terms of inflation, and we are not going to see a reduction in terms of prices of commodities. Simple.
Yes.
Because fuel and electricity are key determinants of production. So now, if these ingredients are stifled, how do we make traction? And talking about that, I would want us to look at a story where economist Yusuf Diodia has advised the Zambian government to address the cost of meal by reducing the cost of fuel. He says, Mr. Dodia argues that curbing smuggling, as suggested by President Hakainde Hichilema, is not a solution, as the country is not in a shortage of the commodity. He notes that factors like the cost of fuel, the cost of electricity have exacerbated the cost of mini meal, saying addressing the cost of all factors in all meal production chain is the lasting solution to the cost of mini meal. So Mr. Dodia is talking about various aspects that go into the production of mini meal. For instance, if the factors of production are addressed, then we may see progress in that. So let's have a look at that story where economist Yusuf Dodia is making that recommendation.
The cost of mini meal has continued to be a source of concern among many Zambians, with citizens showing their displeasure direct to the #1 civil servant, President Hakainde Hichilema, during his 1 week of activism to mark UPND's 2 years in government. The head of state was quick to acknowledge the cries of the people.
Vantu bali kuchita simago. So manje tavala stifuna chimanga chatu kuyenda mu maiko ena nguti bana babantu bazidya bana banga bazikola nanjala matabani wakuno manje kulibe kutenga ku bantu bali panje panje.
But economist Yusuf Dodia says curbing smuggling will not in any way reduce the cost of mini meal, as this is not the case of shortage of the commodity in the country.
Clearly, there's a difference between high prices of mini meal and shortage of mini meal. One can attribute smuggling to the shortage of mini meal, meaning that traders would prefer to take the mini meal to neighboring countries and sell it there for more money, thereby creating a shortage in Zambia. But from what I'm seeing from the comments that are coming out there, it's not about shortages, it's about the high price. So the issue of smuggling is not really the issue at hand.
Mr. Dodia feels the only way to address the cost of mini meal is by addressing the cost of producing the commodity.
We need to go back and say, if we want to bring the price of mini meal down and to stabilize it, we have to bring the costs of production down. In other words, we need to find cheaper fuel sources, cheaper electricity, cheaper ways of money, cheaper money. We have to borrow money at a cheaper rate than we're borrowing now, because the milling companies are having overdrafts and loans and paying an interest of 25 to 30%. That also goes towards the customer. So at the end of the day, if we can reduce inflation rates, it means the bank interest rates will come down. And inflation rates, we're talking about consumer pricing index-based inflation rates. Those are the ones, if they come down, the cost of borrowing money comes down, the cost of milli meal comes down.
Currently, a 25 kg bag of milli meal is fetching at between 270 kwacha and 300 kwacha in most parts of the country, despite President Hakainde Hichilema promising while in opposition to reduce the cost of the commodity to 50 kwacha once in government. 2 years down the line, Zambians wait patiently for the time when a 25 kg bag of milli meal will be costing 50 kwacha, or they start believing politicians are good at making fake promises. Vincent Piri for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
Quite interesting views there. We have seen that various stakeholders have continued to re-echo their voice on the issue regarding to milli meal price. Just hearing from the last statement made by the reporter there is that 2 years down the line, people are still patiently waiting upon the promises made by the current administration, which is the UPND, where they did promise the people of Zambia that once in office, the 25 kg bag of milli meal will cost 50 kwacha, but apparently 2 years down the line, a bag of milli meal, a 25 kg bag of milli meal is costing, or rather fetching between 280 and in some other parts of the country 300 kwacha, which is a very, quite a very huge price to others who have now continued, to call upon government and ensure that this issue is adequately resolved as soon as possible. Yeah. Indeed,
Miriam Kayemba. And interesting, our dear viewers, we want to hear from you. Keep those messages coming on our Facebook page. We can see some of you watching and want to thank you for staying tuned. We have Prince Darius saying, watching from Lusaka, Zambia. Kennedy Efu Muya Kwabo says, watching from Livingstone. Martha Mvula says, I'm watching from Chunga and Chunga Government Farm. And we have Lloyd Chola saying, watching from within Lusaka. Mumba FC Junior following from Mukushi. We have quite a number of areas watching us this morning. Let's get interrupting, and we want you to be commenting on the stories that we are looking at on Zooming the Headlines this morning on the Camnet Breakfast Show. Now, let's also play you a story of where we are focusing on the topic of the day, and that's where government has handed over Konkola Copper Mines KCM to Vedanta Mineral Resources with caution, imploring the investor to save the interest of local miners. Speaking Tuesday in a media address, Mines and Mineral Development Minister Paul Kabuswe is optimistic that the return of the investor will boost production in the mining sector. So let's have a look at this story. We'll be back shortly.
Mining remains Zambia's backbone for economic growth. Since May 2019, the impasse between government and Vedanta Mineral Resources has been a thorn for the country's mining sector after failing to meet the earlier promise of 31st July 2023 for the new investor to take over operations at Konkola Copper Mines. Government has handed over the operations of the mines to Vedanta Mineral Resources with a call to perform to the expectations of the set guidelines. Disclosing the announcement, Minister of Mines and Mineral Development Paul Kabuswe says the investor is expected to boost the country's mining sector to the benefit of Zambians.
Following these consultations, I'm here to announce that we have finalized the negotiations with Vedanta. Vedanta will return to run and resuscitate operations of KCM as the majority shareholders alongside ZCCM-IH. I want to say to Vedanta that underlying the word resuscitate, therein lies the benefit to the Zambian people. We don't want running battles. We, like the Minister Copperbelt said, the Vedanta under UPND is going to be different. We are very positive about.
Among the conditions Vedanta Mineral Resources will have to meet after reinstatement includes $1 billion United States dollars injection for development at KCM, $250 million as payment to all creditors, $20 million investment into the local community every year, 20% increase in salaries for employees, and one-off payment of 2,500 kwacha to all employees. The investor, through its representative Pushpenda Singla, is ready for operations in 3 months.
And once-off payment kwacha 2,500 and a 20% increase to all the KCM employees with the intention to provide a long-term stability. Invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, The negotiation with all the stakeholders to resolve the dispute may have taken longer than anticipated. But finally, we have concluded and reached an agreement. I think this is a win-win situation for the government, for Vedanta, for JCCM, and more specifically for the people of Zambia.
Meanwhile, stakeholders in the mining sector are delighted, explaining that the deal will address various challenges the sector has been facing.
To the clients of the miners and the other people that depend on KCM. And so you can send them that we thank him, but finally KCM was unlocked, which was a thorny issue as we interface with the workers. Including you, Honorable Minister, some people have called you.
As my colleague said, we are also passing our gratitude to His Excellency the President in ensuring that we reach this far. The only request that we want to make, since the agreement is already there, we would want some funds to continue flowing. And this I would urge the ZCMIH board, working with the provisional liquidator and vendetta. You have already agreed. So can we have funds begin to flow so that suppliers are paid?
As government targets to boost the annual copper production to 3 million metric tons in 10 years, will the target be realized? Game on, time will tell. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News, Lusaka.
Quite interesting views there. We did see, government giving back Vedanta, KCM to Vedanta Resources, and where we have some quite interesting views from our viewers who are watching us live on Facebook, and their views with regard to our topic of discussion this morning is that always investors, when are going to have our own investors, kanshi, corruption involved.
Then we have Jimmy T, who says corruption involved. We also have Kingsley Machila, who says, good morning guys, I'm watching you from Mazabuka, sweetest town in southern province of Zambia. Machila is always
he's always our
from that sweetest town.
Keen follower. We do appreciate his commitment of always ensuring that he doesn't miss the opportunity of watching the Camnet TV breakfast show. We also have Patrick Sikazwe, who says, watching you from Eastern Province, Katete District, 280 unga kuno. I think he was commenting to
that story
in relation to the story that we earlier played. Yeah. So interesting. We are still getting your views and comments on the Camnet Breakfast Show, or dear viewers, and we want to hear from you right about now. You can call us in studio and give us your perspective. We have looked at quite a number of stories bordering on the price of meal, on the measures the government is putting in place to address the cost of meal, as well as the stakeholders who are criticizing the interventions the government is putting in place to reduce the cost of meal. So we are getting your comments and contribution, and in case you want to join the conversation, you can do so now on the Camnet Breakfast Show right about now, so that we can hear from you wherever you are calling us from. And we also have a story pertaining to Vedanta, which we looked at, and that's also part of our main topic of discussion. What is your take on government's decision to hand over KCM to Vedanta? And we want to hear from you, especially those of you on the copper belt, because you were the most affected. And do you hope that this mining firm will live to the expectation, to the promises it has made? It has promised to inject $1 billion United States dollars. That's quite a huge capital. Yeah, quite a huge capital. Yeah, but however Zambians are concerned, like we heard on our Facebook page someone saying, when are we going to have our own investors? We have to give up everything to foreign direct investors. Exactly, and most of the times we're told we lack the capacity, of which I have refused. Exactly. Are we going to live in perpetuity with that capacity? But what are we doing about it to ensure that we build the necessary capacity? We do have the capacity, it's just that we don't trust our own. That's all. This is what I will tell you. I like the phrase. Anyway, moving forward, let's just get to look at a story where leader of the opposition in Parliament, Brian Mundubile, says the continued detention of patriots for economic progress, President Sean Tembo, is unlawful.
Several stakeholders have joined cause to have the opposition Patriotic for Economic Progress, PEP leader Sean Tembo, to be released, as his continued detention is unlawful. The law demands that a suspect should be charged and taken to court within 2 days of detention. Sean Tembo has been in police custody since Thursday last week after he was arrested and charged with 2 counts of hate speech contrary to Section 65 of the Cyber Security and Cyber Crimes Act No. 2 of 2023. Some opposition members of parliament who visited the PEP leader called for his immediate release. They say this is not in accordance with the rule of law which President Hakainde Hichilema has always been preaching about.
I think some of these basics like adherence to the rule of law are basics. Because all the IG has to do today is to follow what the Commander-in-Chief has said. And that is to give bond for offenses that are bondable. And in cases where matters should be taken to court, the police must act swiftly.
To see the opposition president Economic Freedom Party, Mr. Sean Tembo, was in detention for the past 5 days, which is a totally opposite of what the president was emphasizing just yesterday. He was very clear, I think, to those that listened to him, that people have to be given bond immediately or be taken to court the same day in the afternoon. But here is a different story. Again, you need to know whether the president is being undermined deliberately by those that are charged with the responsibility of arresting and giving people police bonds, as it were.
Kwena ndelo makofipuli bakateka ba President Hakainde Hichilema kutila banasheni ko mutima bwesheni mu mutima yalama shiwe mwabonse she aya kutila mwalambe mingalato mwalambo kutinga twapito kwimo mwapitira kunuma mwaikata na pamukoshi lefo kumyewo kutila Sean Tembo kalekane na muikata pamukoshi bantu Sean Tembo aikala 5 days umaseos kwabula ukumufumia pamulandu wa hate speech.
Yesterday, President Hakainde Hichilema stressed the need to reform Zambia's criminal justice system so that the court cases do not take long to be disposed of. Addressing inmates at Lusaka Central Correctional Facility, President Hichilema says there is need for the Minister of Justice to quickly reform the criminal justice system to ensure that cases are disposed of early without delays.
To quickly reform the criminal justice system. I used to be arrested on a Thursday, and will be kept in prison Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They will say, no, officers are not working Tuesday, before I'm taken to the court. Now, this president has said, whoever is arrested, first, before anyone is arrested, there must be an investigation. Before you arrest somebody. When you arrest somebody, you must be ready to take them to court. That's the criminal justice system we want. That's the fairness we want.
Reporting for Camnet TV News, my name is Marco Kwakozi in Lusaka.
Quite interesting views there from the president. Anyway, we did see that yesterday PEP President Mr. Sean Tembo was released from custody. But you have to understand, Patrick, that he has been in custody since last week and almost 5 days in detention. And there on the last clip, we did see the president, saying the continued detention without giving someone a bond or bail, if a matter is bailable, bondable, it's against their constitutional right.
Yeah, it's an interesting story because look, the president was complaining about him being arrested on a Friday, then so that he stays in up to the weekend. I think that's what happened to Sean Tembo.
Exactly.
Is it a case of revenge? That's what I think. That's why the opposition members of parliament were suggesting that way.
Anyway, let's pick this call. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I'm Mr. Mulenga from Chingola.
It's good to know that Chingola is watching us this morning. Please go ahead with your contribution, Mr. Mulenga.
The first one That's why I was thinking of it, which the bush tree, among farmers, both fishes, but I might use coming in farming fever, but I'm putting on. But don't tell me now, I don't really need what. Couldn't change what I talk about that for me. But that's what I'm going to just wait until 125, 150. So much in Bagam, we are in a show for a joint that we can bring. We don't know that you went to our mom of not mine here is for to complete. But this, if you are with our thing better, we sell our we know. You may feel you are down. That's the Shenko, that is separation, we don't go. At least if you are in that right, Sarah Parashara for we know. A contribution and in actual way won't be
Mulenga.
Yeah.
That was Mr. Mulenga from Chingola. Is giving us his perspective. He feels Mr. Kambodi should tone down, and that he's happy that Vedanta is back, and probably they will contribute towards uplifting the economic situation in that region. So those are the views of Mr. Mulenga. But I want to hear from you also, because remember that here on Camnet TV we prioritize democracy and we prioritize divergent views, and that's what we mean when we talk about democracy being an ideology of ideas where we have to continue to contribute and give our perspective to national matters. And let's get interacting on the Camnet Breakfast Show. We want to hear from you. Tell us where you are calling us from, or tell us where you are watching us from on our Facebook page. We want to hear from you, and we want to get the conversation going. We have quite some reactions on our Facebook page. We have Mutinta who is reacting to Jimmy. Mutinta Makondo says, you are right, these people are interested in making their profit and exploit us. Then Mutinta again comes back and says these investors just exploit us, and maximizing their profit is their aim, and not to develop Zambia. We have Lloyd Chola says, good morning everyone. Regarding the high cost of living, I'm not optimistic about the reduction of essential commodities in the future. He's just predicting that things may not be any good in the future. I think his prediction is premises on the economic fundamentals he has read. Because from if you do your own analysis, even you, Miriam Kayembe, if you know that next year we are going to have an increase in electricity tariffs, and we are going to continue to have a monthly review of fuel prices, and they may continue in the same trajectory. What can give you the confidence that you may have a reduction of essential commodities? Let's have a pick this call. You are through to the Camnet Breakfast Show. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Fine, and how are you, sir? Your name and where you are calling us from?
We're talking to us.
Okay, you can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Yes, first and foremost, I want to state that this is the first political for me towards Camnet.
Okay.
Or Camnet TV.
All right.
In all fairness, I feel as journalists, we need to have an impartial perspective of things. From the tone of your voices, I can tell that there is some biasness. But that's what you make the reason why I called him. I called him because I feel that the government is trying by all means to ensure that citizens are in a better place. For instance, the coming back of the NAFTA, it's a good move for the people of the Cocoa Belt, because it will provide jobs. People are now wishing for businesses were collapsing. So for everyone who is that there, any patriotic person, they want to see the goodwill of the government. So let us be able to analyze this and decide where it's necessary. Not what we use the political journalists, okay, when we analyze this thing. That is my contribution. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your opinion, but I think you just pick his perspective.
Exactly.
Because we give pros and cons on the Camnet Breakfast Show. They based on the projections, and we do not add our opinion. It's based on the economic fundamentals and just that. And if you look at the economic indicators, that's what we follow. For example, if we follow this depreciation of the kwacha, and we look at how the ERB will make the next pronouncements, we are able to determine as journalists to know that the next course of decision by the ERB is to revise the pump price upwards.
Exactly.
So that is obvious. But if you see things in the political race, you think you jump into conclusion. But if you look at the Zambia's inflation, which is a double digit, it is obvious that the cost of essential prices, including meal meal, will continue to be on upward trajectory. So now let's pick out this other call.
Hello, good morning. Hello, you're through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to this morning? Can you please kindly hold your phone properly so that we can clearly get you? Hello? Okay, we seem to have lost that caller, but please do call us back so that you can give us your contribution on our topic rather this morning, where we are looking at your take on government handing over KCM back to VEDANTA. What do you think about that? In my view, Patrick, or rather, if we analyze where we are coming from, I think at this point, okay, I think it was the right process for government to do that. A lot of people would argue that it was the right process, looking at the litigations that we had before the courts of law, and it was quite evident that government was going to lose those cases before the courts of law, and we are going to be in huge debt to pay back to VEDANTA. But anyway, we have to also understand that they were the legal owners of the mine at the moment.
Yes, those
are the factors.
But the same people you saw in that clip there, they are the people who were pushing for the liquidation of KCM, like the unions.
Anyway, before you finish your thoughts, let's get this call. Hello, good morning. We are fine, thank you. How are you? Who are we talking to this morning? Please go. It's good to know that Chingola is watching us. Please go ahead with your contribution, sir.
I think we have lost that one. I think we had a bad reception. You do call us back so that we can hear your views. Remember that we want to hear from you. Divergent views is what we accommodate on the Camnet Breakfast Show, and we want to hear from you. So you were talking about something pertaining to VEDANTA.
Yeah, like, you know, has government done the correct thing in giving back? We are coming from, we are talking about, let's talk about the legal perspective. We are aware that they were the legal owners of the mine, and we had cases before the courts of law, okay, which it was evident that government was going to lose and were going to pay a huge sum of money to VEDANTA. But right about now, the question is, what is it that we need to do forward? Okay, that is the question. Now, one thing, Patrick, that we need to understand as a country is that our dependence has been so much on the mines that we have become vulnerable and not looking at other sectors. Anyway, let's get to pick this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
You are through to the Camnet TV Breakfast Show. Who are we talking to?
Oh, you are talking Charles Mwamba. Thank you. Right.
It's good to know that Kitwe is watching us this morning. Please give us your contribution.
Oh, well, I just want to also to comment on government to hand over data to KCM. I think it's a very good move. Remember, Popapel or Pachuplanchanga or Chingola, they depend on that mine. And during its liquidation, you saw a lot of even marketeers, and the people were employed. They could earn a living from KCM and buy food from marketeers. the local authority to benefit now. So we want to commend the government for this position. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for your comment, and it is valid always on the Camnet Breakfast Show. And keep giving us those messages. We want to hear from you, especially those of you from the Copper Belt, because we have been on this journey on KCM and Vedanta for a long time, for 2 years. And finally, we had made some progress as of yesterday. We have seen quite a number of Vedanta, pro-Vedanta movement activists who are championing this agenda to say, if the mine is not opened, people continue to languish on the Copper Belt. Now that the decision has been made, what do you make of this decision? And we have seen that the mining giant has also assured to invest $1 billion United States dollars for the operations of the mine. So let's keep getting going with those opinions on the Camnet Breakfast Show. We want to hear from you, our dear viewers. So now, if the history around Vedanta is also a political issue.
A political issue, yes, we do understand that it was grabbed from Vedanta. The mine was grabbed from them, and these also later led on the matter being before the courts of law. And that itself, Patrick, it tells you that on how the mine was grabbed from Vedanta, it was quite evident that in one way or another we are going to lose the cases.
So but based on the same processes, I think there's a learning process on how we handle these ownerships of the mines, how we handle the partnerships. So, but I think in the interest of transparency, we'd also want to know what is on the table in terms of these the thorough details of these mines, in terms of ownership, in terms of the shares. How is the shareholding arrangement? I think probably ZCC IMH will be giving us those details in due course, but we have to know all those details, because sometimes Miam Kemba, we saw others suggesting that probably we should have a model where investors just bring the capital, and that we should not be giving away the land. And
those
so
are
you can just give
concerns.
someone a permit to mine. But if we are going to have these issues, we are going to be finding it challenging, especially when you have differences, because there are a lot of things that have emerged in the mining sector. Because if you remember the issue of Vedanta, it came in the aspect of the workers on the Copper Belt saying that they were not able to get good salaries. They were not able, the unions felt shortchanged. So now the PF, then the opposition, while in government, they took this decision to
get the mine from them,
and they did this during the election. Also, when we were talking about the election period, this when they started these maneuvers of KCM, Vedanta, So it became a political issue. You saw that, for example, even the unions there, we have clips of where they were talking about, no, this investor is responsible and everything. But, with the coming of the UPND, they also came to say probably, like you said earlier, handling this issue via the court process was going to be suicidal, and that probably Zambia was not going to lose a lot of money, and they opted to resolve this matter outside the court and doing away with all litigation to make sure that this issue is resolved outside. But there's a learning process from the way the Vedanta situation has been handled. There are other investments and future investments that we can look at. How do we make sure that we do something right instant when in the inception of a mining being established? How can we make sure that all these things are addressed? And I'm happy to mention that we have an interesting development in the mining sector where we have a mineral reserve fund that has a mineral fund, a fund that has been taken towards an environmental fund, where if this mine has to be which they contribute, this fund is to make sure that it undertakes activities to safeguard the environment in the wake of these exploration activities. So we have to make sure that that fund also lives up to its purpose. But this fund was launched last month, and that's a good progress. Also, that will help us to be able to restore the land to its original position. You are through to the Camnet Breakfast Show. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
We are fine, thank you, sir. Who are we talking to this morning?
Yes, Felix from Kitwe.
Kitwe, how is Kitwe this morning?
Kitwe is fine.
You can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the Vedanta business.
Okay, you can proceed.
We have been studying this business for some time now, and the time we just let it go. For me, as long as the government has agreed to leave them to Vedanta, it's all right. At least we have back on the copper belt.
Thank you.
And also going forward, if the nation as a country, new mines like the good life and the good mines. Let us also now all these mines are standard. Yeah, for it to Vedanta, I know a lot of people think it came the very old mine and the copper there is on a very low grade. Then they take it up and bring life up to copper belt as long as they're able to give the workers good conditions than it was before. It's okay, no problem. Let's go see for that.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. All right, we are still getting your views on the breakfast show this morning.
And one thing I've noticed, Patrick, is that we have received a lot of callers from the copper belt, and
they're on the mine.
They're on the mine. That just tells you the excitement that they're currently feeling at the moment.
Yeah, I think it was long overdue.
Yeah.
Regardless of the situation, this matter had to come to a closure one way or the other, because if you look at the time frame that it took, I think.
And with regard to the pledges that have been made, we know that, you know, they can be fulfilled or not. And this is not the first time that this company has made such pledges. But we hope that this time around, they, you know, they wake upon their word. And we shouldn't just be talking all the time. We need to see action. This is what people want to see at the end of the day.
Indeed, we have to see action and make sure that those investment pledges are actualized, because if they are actualized, I think they will go a long way in us stabilizing the economy. You know, we are talking about the Kwacha performance. When we start our breakfast show, one of our second segment is the money market, where we look at the performance of the Kwacha. So if you look at that, okay, before
Patrick,
that,
just hold your thoughts. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Hello, good morning.
We seem to lose that caller, but please do call us back. Yes.
So I was explaining, if we look at the exchange rate, why it is performing as bad as it is, like going towards 21, it's because our export portfolio is not as big as it should be. We are importing more than we are exporting. And when you're talking about exporting, the tonnage, we highly depend on copper exports. So now if these critical mines like KCM and Mopani are not operating at optimum level, you don't expect to get more out of the exports. So now if these mines now start operating, we can be assured of good returns, and that aspiration of the country being able to get 3 million metric tons of copper per annum in the period of 10 years, it will be actualized, because now these mines will be contributing to that profile of us in improving production of copper. Now, that means that we are able to export more, but those are traditional exports, because copper is naturally our traditional exports. But as a country, we also have to look at other non-traditional exports, such as in the agricultural sector, so that we maximize this agricultural portfolio. If we maximize on that, there is no shortcut to that. Then you see we have more dollars in the economy, and that will go towards stabilizing our economy. Exactly. And that is something that Zambians are waiting for. But the news that, for example, these mines will be operating, it is something that the mines that remains dormant. Are you getting the point?
Exactly.
If the mine that is not operating as it should, and it continues to be entangled in the legal cases. So that's something that people have to smile about, because we have contractors who supply commodities to KCM. We have workers themselves. These workers have families, and families depend on them. So if we are going to see production in that mine, I'm sure many livelihoods will be safeguarded. So our hope, like you said, is that we hope that this $1 billion United States dollars will be actualized because sometimes investment projects are usually not actualized. So probably they can just inject half of this money, but we hope that they will inject, because if they inject this kind of resource into
we're going to see much improvement and changes.
That means that, for example, just the injection of this capital, that means that we at least that's more dollars in our economy, and that is good for our productivity as a nation.
I think we, as a country, we need to go back to our drawing board and just see how we handled this case, and this should be a lesson learned, and so that in future we can avoid such situation. Anyway, moving forward, let's just get to look at a story where a renowned political analyst, Alex Ngoma, says calls for President Hakainde Hichilema to step down unjustified despite the economy hardship the country is going through. Let's get to look at that story and we'll be right back.
On 24th of August 2023, the United Party for National Development, UPND, clocked 2 years in government. Zambia's Republican President Hakainde Hichilema led a week of activism to celebrate the 2 years in office from the 24th of August to the 4th of September, highlighting several achievements as well as acknowledging the high cost of living marked with the high prices of mini meal in the country. However, some critics from the opposition have labelled President Hakainde Hichilema's 2 years in office an outright failure, urging him to step down. The named opposition leaders are Kelvin Fube and Nason Musoni of Zambia Must Prosper and All People's Congress Party, respectively.
Now asking every Zambian to ask Hakainde Hichilema to resign.
Reacting to the cause, renowned political analyst Alex Ngoma says calling for the resignation of President Hichilema is extreme show of displeasure, which is not justifiable regardless of the prevailing economic situation in the country.
Yes, indeed, and admittedly, the country is in a mess at the moment. Things are very bad. The economy is very bad. People are having difficulties putting 3 meals on the tables for their families, and that's where these calls are actually coming from.
Dr. Ngoma has since urged opposition political parties to instead focus on offering checks and balances to government through offering solutions to the challenges being faced.
What I would like to advise is that maybe let's focus on the issues that needs to be done. Those are the things that people feel the president is failing to do. And if they have got alternatives or suggestions, maybe they can step forward and offer those suggestions just to help this country.
Meanwhile, United Party for National Development, UPND Deputy Secretary General Gertrude Remenda has called for constructive criticism from the opposition.
And people should stop trying to be derogatory. When you are giving what is called checks and balances, do it calmly, deal with the issues. Don't deal with the personalities. There's no need to use hate speech in that one, because hate speech is a criminal offense. The law takes its course, but we are not arresting every opposition member just because they are speaking. No, it is their job to do that. It's their duty to do that.
For Camnet News, Afias Kaptula, Lusaka.
Thank you very much for staying with us on the Camnet Breakfast Show. We were looking at some of the stories making the headlines, and we had a story there from the United Party for National Development, UPND Deputy Secretary General Gertrude Remenda, as well as a story from a renowned political analyst as well as a political scientist, Dr. Alex Ngoma, talking about the desperation by opposition political parties to make sure that they did the image of President Hakainde Hichilema. It says cause for him to resign are baseless, given that the economy, that just based on the current economic situation, it says it is just they just have to provide the checks and balances as opposed to calling for such unrealistic cause. I call them unrealistic.
Unrealistic, but you know, still the opposition would still argue that when they offer those checks and balances and you know, these sectors or fundamentals are not being worked on, hence the need for them to call on the president to step down if he has failed. Those are the justifications that we have heard from various opposition political parties.
But there's been also another argument, Miriam, that we've heard that even prior to the August 2021 general elections, we were previewed that the economic situation for this country was bad. given the debt situation, and that any government, that anyone would have formed government would have been facing the current challenges. And even the PF themselves were going the IMF route.
Exactly.
So now, would it have been any better? But how do I think
exactly. But I think, you know,
yes.
This is a time that we have seen now the coming in of a new administration. They're already 2 years in office, and, you know, they did promise the people of Zambia a lot of things, a lot of changes. We have seen various changes, but still people have hope, you know, that, you know, come 5 years, after 3 to 4 years, you know, we'll be able to see a major change, you know, in our economy. But that, regardless, Soko, does not, you know, put the current administration to be reluctant and say, because we did find the situation at crisis, you know, this is the excuse that we are going to be given. No, this is the more reason that, you know, people say that this is the more reason why we voted for you, and we expect you, you know, to change the face of this country.
Yeah, you are right. So no, let's keep those calls coming. We want to hear from you, especially bordering on the topics of discussion. The topic of discussion pertaining to government decision to hand over Vedanta to, or KCM rather, to Vedanta resources, and we want to hear from you. We've spoken to quite a number of people who have given us their opinions on the matter, and their opinions are valid on the Camnet Breakfast Show, and we want to hear from you too. What do you think of this move? We also played quite a number of stories pertaining to the issue of mini meal, where some opposition political party leaders want the government to address the issue of the cost of mini meal. We also had stories bordering on the issue of detention of Patriots for Economic Progress leader Sean Tembo, who was arrested, and he was detained, and he's likely to be arrested again because there are other charges that are following him. And today, talking about arrests, we are also going to have another issue bordering on the First Lady, where she has been summoned, Miriam Kaemba,
to appear before the investigative wings, which is the Drug Enforcement Commission. But also you have to be aligned to the fact that currently the Director of Public Prosecution has, you know, started up a case against the former First family before the Economic and Financial Crimes Court at the High Court Division there, where, you know, the DPP is requesting the court to say that the court should order the former ruling party to surrender some of the property that, you know, the state is alleging are said to be proceeds of crime. They should be handed back to the state, and in return they will not be prosecuted. But anyway, we are yet to see the outcome of the case. The matter, the documents are being filed every day before the courts of law. Will continue to monitor that case and see what verdict the court will give at the end of the day. But anyway, when it comes to, with regard this morning, where she is supposed to appear before the investigative wings, we hope, you know, to get much information as we can, and we'll be able to update in our main news. But anyway, moving forward, Patrick, we have some comment where some of our Facebook viewers says, let's not politicize the vendetta issue. If the government has agreed with vendetta in new terms, let's give them a chance. At least we need life back on the Coppola. Going forward, we need to start managing our new mines like sugilite, gold, and nickel. Anyway, interesting. Before I finish reading those comments on Facebook, let's get this call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Hello? I think we've lost that one. You do call us back so that we hear from you. We do want to hear from you and your opinion. You can proceed, Miriam Kemba, with
just finishing up the last statement of this comment. Says copper mining is not easy, and KCM is very old, and copper is low there in terms of grade. So let's Vendetta do the job and improve on the condition of our mines. And then we have Match who says better late than never. Quite interesting. We have Voice Out Zambia says another disaster decision. Quite interesting views there. Quite interesting views there, Patrick.
Interesting.
I don't know what he meant by another disaster decision, but I think it's regard to our topic of discussion this morning. He thinks it's a disaster decision made by the government.
No, like we always say, everyone else is entitled to their opinion, and
exactly.
we have to respect their opinion. So now, moving on, we want to hear from you. You can give us that call. Let's get interacting on the Camnet Breakfast Show. Remember that we are broadcasting on DSTV channel 274, as well as on GoTV channel 25, and on Topstar channel 106. Remember that Camnet TV is also on our Facebook page. We are streaming live our breakfast show, and also on our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on TikTok. We get to post interesting stories and activities there. So let's get interacting here on the Camnet Breakfast Show.
Just to finish up some of the comments that we have on Facebook, it's, another comment says, we have allowed them, but going forward, let's handle the ownership of these new mines like Sujilite and Gold KCM as a lower grade of copper. And for me, as long as VEDANTA can improve the condition of our miners, it's okay. We have Ngosa who says, you wanted government to do what? To wait for a court process, which can even take 20 years? Think again. The people of Chingola and Kitwe called for this.
Those are your comments. I think we did manage to get enough feedback from the people, especially those from the Copper Belt, pertaining to what they think over the government's decision to hand over Vedanta. And that has been the topic of discussion that we have been looking at. And we value everyone else who contributed on the Camnet Breakfast Show, and those of you who reached us through our Facebook page. Thank you for watching, but this is where we have to call it a day on the Camnet Breakfast Show Wednesday edition, Governance, Policy and Politics. Keep it on Camnet TV, because Camnet TV is not just another channel.